Good evening. A meeting of the Special Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee is being held on Monday, November 15th, 2021 at 7:03 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chambers, as well as via Zoom teleconference. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda of the city's website for the meeting link. The roll call will be taken by Alderman O'Brien.
Alderman Skip Cleaver is absent. Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly. Absent. Alderman Tom Lopez.
Here.
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens.
Here.
Alderman Michael O'Brien is present as clerk. Alderman June Karen.
I am here.
Also in attendance, the mayor and John Griffin, CFO. Also in attendance, Alderman Wiltshire, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Clay, Alderman Gathright, Alderman Jettie, and Alderman Lou. Also, City Treasurer David Fredette.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here too.
Yeah, corporate counsel. Corporate counsel is also here.
Oh, yeah, and also Kim Kleiner is also present.
Okay.
Did I get, no, I think I got, oh, and Attorney Bolton, sorry about that, Attorney Bolton. No problem.
Thank you.
I got a lot of writing to do.
Okay, all right, we'll start with public comment. Please come to the front, state your name and address, please.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street.
Thank you.
I'm only speaking first because I don't know what this discussion is going to be like, but I would like to know how the hiring process worked for this position, the recruiting process. Does the city use any type of outside recruiting agency to try and attract candidates to the job? And the reason I'm asking that is because I think CFO Griffin is highly qualified for what he does. He does a terrific job. I think he knows our budget inside and out, every line item. But I do become concerned when we expand somebody's responsibilities and they have to wear more hats than they do. And I think we all know what we saw when CFO Griffin had to carry, assessing on top of finance. It turned out to be a big task that was too difficult to cover. And my only concern is when we take the CFO and we put him in the treasurer tax collector's role, that we're doing the same thing. We're splitting him and diluting him down, where you can't be as successful as you should be. Our city is the 4th best city in the country, supposedly, in this rating system. And I'd like to try and understand why we have so much trouble recruiting. And you know that I've talked to you all about people leaving and how important it is, I think, to understand attrition and why people leave the city. And I haven't had anyone respond to me that they're interested in looking into that or given any information from the administration that they're doing anything about it. But I feel strongly that the board and the public should understand turnover and what's going on with turnover. But equally important is the recruitment of people to come into jobs for the city. And if we're this terrific city, we should understand why it's difficult to recruit and find people. And I will tell you, I'm a big proponent of fresh eyes and feet coming into jobs here, because you get the perspective of somebody new looking at material and potentially pointing out things that might need to change or need improvements that get overlooked by those who stay within the system and are trained within the system. And so right now, we have the Administrative Services Director, who's an inside person who covers like 8 departments. That's one set of eyes, but that's also very much an appointment picked by the mayor, period. Not really outside recruited with any, fresh perspective. And now we're taking the treasurer and tax collector's role and we're putting him in underneath the CFO. and that becomes their role, and again, it's the same people. And I think we miss an opportunity to understand how our government works and improve it really openly by recruiting in
30 seconds.
new people. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. All right, is there anyone on Zoom? I don't see anyone. No, okay, there is no one, thank you. So we'll go to communications.
There are none.
Okay, interviews. The Office of CFO Treasurer Tax Collector, term to expire indefinitely. Mayor, would you like to come forward with CFO Griffin, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I, as you saw last meeting of the Board of Aldermen, have nominated CFO Griffin to be the treasurer tax collector for the city. Now, the position that Mr. Griffin currently holds, well, there are three financial positions, basically, at the top of the various financial organizations in City Hall. There's the treasurer tax collector, there's the CFO, and there's the comptroller. Right now, Mr. Griffin holds two of those positions, those being CFO and comptroller. The proposal that I'm making in proposing Mr. Griffin as treasurer tax collector is that we make him the treasurer tax collector and the CFO, but assign the position of comptroller to someone else. So Mr. Griffin would continue to hold two of those three positions. Someone else would become the comptroller. There certainly is precedent for this. Paul Martell served as both the treasurer and the CFO. But why specifically am I appointing Mr. Griffin? First of all, we know that we've worked with him for 11 years. I for not that entire time, but a lot of it as an alderman and as now as mayor. You're all very familiar with him. He's done a very good job in managing the city finances and helping us with the budget. And he and Mr. Fredette, who I know is in the audience and has been a terrific treasurer tax collector for the city, have worked together for all of those 11 years on the most critical functions of the treasurer tax collector. Those critical functions are certainly overseeing the debt issuance or bonding process. That is something that Mr. Griffin and Mr. Fredette have worked carefully on together. It involves, of course, working with our financial advisor, which is Hilltop Securities, specifically Cinder McNerney. Also, though, participating on and contributing to the ratings calls, which the city has with the various rating agencies before each of the bond issues that contribute to the conclusion of these rating agencies regarding the city's bond rating. And during the course of the time when Mr. Fredette and Mr. Griffin have worked together on this, they have been able to maintain the Fitch rating of AAA. They've been able to increase the S&P rating to AAA. And in the Moody, the third rating agency that we've not quite, have not been as involved with, still they have raised recently the city's bond rating from, in their opinion, AA2 to AA1, which is just the rating below AAA. So together they have successfully managed the bonding process. Mr. Griffin knows that process very well, and I think can do a better job with that, understanding the city's financial picture as well as the bond, the history of our issuance, better than anyone else that we could find. I think over time we have learned that oftentimes the best choice is the person that we know very well. Oftentimes when people are brought in from the outside, less than successful. And I think all of us here know that if Mr. Griffin becomes the city tax collector, treasurer, he will do a good job. We will have total confidence, and we will have a well-run financial operation. Before I conclude, there's another area that the treasurer tax collector does, of course, in terms of collects revenue, but also watches over the various assets of the city, the trusts and the like, with some help there, but with assistance there. But again, Mr. Griffin is has been very involved with that in terms of working with David Fredette as well. So for all those reasons, I believe that Mr. Griffin is our best choice for treasurer tax collector, and that we will continue to be well served by him in this capacity. And with that, I give you John, and he can express his thoughts and then answer any questions or thoughts that you may have.
Thank you. CFO Griffin?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you very much, Mayor, for those kind remarks. I really have enjoyed my stay here at the city, starting, believe it or not, August 23rd, 2010. I had spent my first 20 years as a early staffer with Colonial Gas Company, which was a relatively large distribution company in Lowell. And what I liked about that job is I had a number of jobs. I was in charge of the rate-making process, testifying before the Department of Public Utilities, finance, accounting, cash management. Had a few positions. Vice president was my last one, and then we got bought by a larger company that now is National Grid, which bought not only the gas business, but has the presence of the electric company. So I really had a home there. I had 20 years there, and when somebody acquires your company and they don't need two of you, you kind of have to look around. So spent a fair amount of time in between 2000, 2010, kind of searching for that next Colonial Gas Company. And when I applied for the job of comptroller, CFO comptroller, my real passion and love is CFO. Comptroller, I have the basics. I have a Bentley College at the time, accountancy with highest honors. With my team at Colonial, my mentors there, we went to Babson nights, which is somewhat difficult, but didn't have any kids until I graduated, which was good. So I lived with my wife, Elizabeth, in Tingsboro, never made it over the border, but I did coach in the Nashua youth hockey program for 9 years, starting in 2001 through 2009. So when I met with Mayor Lozo, she had a great question. What do you know about Nashua? And I said, know a lot about Nashua. Great community. And it was at that time I really had prideful emotions of taking my traveling team and playing up in Berlin, I guess that's what you call it, Seaport, Seacoast, Manchester, Hanover. And I really connected, and you folks had built a beautiful facility named the Conway Arena that we really love playing in and showing it pridefully. So when I came here in 2010, David Fredette, great person, great partner, it was funny story, he called me and said, John, you're still in the running, and the good news is the other two guys are from Massachusetts as well. So it's like, I almost went off the road. I was driving back from Boston, but David and I have just bonded really well. We're not totally alike, we're different, but it's because of that passion for the city. I knew he was a lifelong resident, really passionate about, really emotional about the city, and I tried to match that in certain ways, but so I really became attached to the city. And then when David indicated, Treasurer Fredette says, I'm retiring, I had tremendously mixed emotions because I know how much you folks care about Mr. Fredette and how responsive and responsible he is. And as I worked with Mayor Donchis and tried to figure out what we should do next, what resonated in my mind is, and this didn't happen yesterday, is knowing things about rating agencies, they definitely want stability at the senior levels of the organization. So what I had was Mr. Fredette managing the Hilltop Securities, that team, bond counsel, all of that. So we have impeccable information that we provide. And the bond purchases, which we generally get between 10 and 12, have a highly competitive bond sale. And as we all know, we like to finance things through bonding, very important. But we also have to have the back office, that controller part of it. And as Mayor Don just mentioned, we're working on that part. We don't have all the answers yet. But as I mentioned, I'm an accountant, but I love the analysis, the projections, the forecasting, the financial management. And on the tax collector side, we've been fortunate enough to have you folks confirm Patricia Barry from Hudson, who's not only a tax collector, she's a town clerk, but she really loves the tax collecting. And so we're in good shape there. She replaced, as you recall, Ruth Rasrick, who did a great job for 45 years in the city. So it's kind of like taking all of this in, and my responsibility as a CFO, you could really call me Director of the Financial Services Division. But the CFO seems a little bit better when you're talking to the rating agencies and the bond purchasers and those types of things. Not that I'm hooked up on titles, but so we have AAA rating, AAA from Standard & Poor's, from Fitch, Standard & Poor's. We just, actually Moody's called us, which is a great story. They called Treasurer Fredette, they reached out to us. There was a new analyst there that came from Standard & Poor's, knew about the great city of Nashua, and he said, John and David, can you tell me a little bit about what you think about the city? And my role in that regard is to just sell the city of Nashua and all the great things that are going on. And we made great progress, not only in the most recent Standard & Poor's, but the rating person basically said, well, I'm going to upgrade you. I'm not sure how far I can go. But the thing that happened, as you all recall, some of you recall back when we acquired Penachuk, they were nervous about the Penachuk acquisition. And quite frankly, you have to have a little bit of levity here, but I said, the person lives in Salem, Massachusetts now. I said, did you ever go to the 99 restaurant? And he said, yeah, I know about that. I go, Penachuk's the best deal in town for the city because we're guaranteed the $9 million a year to pay the bonds. Best deal in town. We know public utility, the PUC, is basically looks very favorably upon Penachuk and they guarantee the rates. Best deal in town, right? So David and I were thrilled. 2 weeks ago, we got the notification from a AA2 to AA1 with an avenue for continued success. So that even reaffirmed my interest in the position because now CFO, Treasurer, Tax Collector, I can even be more involved, more passionate about the city. I'm very confident in our accounting staff that you don't get unmodified opinions for 15 years. You don't get the GFOA mark of excellence on the presentation of our comprehensive annual financial report. You don't get that easily. So what we're interested in doing is keeping that. I want to be able to, in the next rating call, say we have the CFO, same person. We're going to sadly miss Mr. Fredette, but we got that covered. We'll make sure we do a good job at the comptroller. And just make sure that you are all comfortable and that we're going to present our financials in the best way possible. The Standard & Poor's, they had a new analyst too, and I was telling them all about our unbelievable strategy during the pandemic, because that individual's hearing all kinds of horror stories. But you all, we all, did a great job financially and in other ways of making sure, and I was very confident presenting that information. We also, during those calls, have economic development, community development. They're very impressed with what we're doing here in Nashua, especially this Moody's analyst. So I think I have the background. I know I have the background. I'm as passionate today as I was when I got here. Great people, want to keep the process going. And just be real honest as far as the financial state of the city, what we're trying to do, and recommend accordingly. I always try to recommend to the mayor, you know, would you think about this, think about that. And what I like about the mayor is very receptive to my comments. So I know I can work well with my boss, who was the mayor, and I have a great team with me. We have a lot of retention in my group. I mean, it's not very often that you start with in 2010 and your 5 senior members are still with you. So I think I'm looking forward to continuing that. A little bit afraid if we went outside, kind of stayed in my CFO comptroller role, and then I've got to, manage the new person who might not have the same thoughts and ideas about Nashua, but just wanted to share with you all that I've known a lot about Nashua from when I moved up to Tingsboro back in 1988. I played hockey at Conway Arena, coached at Conway Arena, one of the best facilities around. I have skate 3, I like skate 3 in Tingsboro, but it was built in 1970. So with that, sorry to take up a lot of time, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm ready, willing, and eager to participate in this particular role. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first of all, I'm going to take questions from the committee members, and then I'll take questions from anyone else. So, committee members, Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. One of the things I look back on fondly when I was serving my first term as an alderman was in 2010 when Mayor Lozo brought you forward. I consider that one of the best decisions she ever made, and one of the best decisions I ever made was making sure that I voted for your confirmation in the Personnel Committee. And you've definitely proven that you are Nashua's biggest asset, in my opinion. And I'm happy to support you in this position. I think you're gonna continue to serve our city well. You've never let Nashua down. You're always honest. You tell us like it is. And as an alderman, I appreciate that because I want to know the truth, and I want to know what I'm thinking is correct, or what's your opinion, and you always just give it to it straight. And I like that about you, and you've got my support 100%. So thank you for stepping up and wanting to do this and wanting to stay in Nashua. Maybe we can make you a resident someday. But we'll make you an honorary resident regardless.
Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
Just make you an honorary resident then by giving you all the overtime. So my question is, if you're taking over the treasurer, tax collector role, but you've seen it, we've heard a lot about how impressed you are with Treasurer Fredette. Who isn't? He's done a great job. So definitely big shoes to fill, but how would you uniquely fill them? Do you have ideas that are different, or ideas that for improvement that you think your strengths might bring to bear? Do you have plans?
Well, I definitely, if I may, Chair, Alderman Lopez, one of the partnering aspects with Mr. Fredette is kind of my analytical bent. David's got everything in his head, and sometimes just needs that little, my either spreadsheets or writing. I had to write compelling. I had to write to get rate increases for the public utility company because the Attorney General, I know they're against me. So I had to advocate. Here it's a little bit different, but still we're setting tax rates, we're collecting. We try to be respectful of the different issues, working with the team. Probably David, Mr. Fredette, he knows a lot in his head that I'm probably going to need to put on paper and have the analysis. As you can see, he's done a great job. We always have cash. We're always able to pay our bills. We're always planning for the future. So that would be one area. The other would be on technology. We've implemented a few pieces of technology. We moved our tax billing successfully to Unis, but there's some, always challenges with software, and we're going to try to put our wastewater billing, implement that over the next several years. So I'd say the analysis coupled with the technology really boring in and helping the folks understand what the choices are and making sure things work. So those would be areas that I would think would be what I'd like to focus on.
With the caveat that the more you put in technology, the more we have to protect everything we put in technology.
That is
Thank you for your
correct.
answer.
It's a-
Definitely appreciate it.
It's a balancing act, there's no question about that. Thank you.
So, Mayor, I don't have a question, but maybe it would be nice to let the group know that this isn't the first time that the CFO has also been the city tax collector, that this did happen once before. You'd like to
Yes,
speak
well,
on it?
as you recall, Madam Chair, since you were part of that whole organization, city yourself, Mr. Martell, Paul Martell, was the city tax collector and the CFO. Then when John came in, then David came in, but two of the positions, CFO, comptroller, were combined. And now, as you suggest, we're proposing we go back to treasurer tax collector, CFO such as Mr. Martell, and then designate another person as the comptroller.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll open up to questions from other members of the committee. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is probably best directed to the mayor, although I am personally excited to recommend Mr. Griffin. But, Mr. Mayor, we did vet other candidates for this, did we not? Or have other people under consideration? Even though I don't think there's any city rule that stops us from hiring within such as this, but could you just briefly explain the hiring process? It seems to be some question, if you can answer that.
Well, we thought about, because I talked to Mr. Griffin about this over quite a period of time, since David Fredette announced his retirement some months ago. We talked about the possibility of going outside for this position, but as we talked it through, it just seemed like the most stable, the most, the course that would ensure success was this one, to designate Mr. Griffin. And we probably could find someone from the outside, but I don't think they would have the expertise or the knowledge regarding the city that Mr. Griffin does have.
Thank you. Okay. Alderman Wiltshire, then Alderman Dess.
I don't really have a question for Mr. Griffin, but I just want to let him know that I have all the confidence in the world in his ability to do CFO and tax collector. You know, he's a great Red Sox fan. So. No, but honestly, I have a lot of confidence in you, and you will definitely have my support. Thank you.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, Mr. Griffin and I worked together very closely over the several last years as chair of budget, and we spent many, many hours discussing different line items and things. He is extremely knowledgeable, and I know that he works hand in hand with Mr. Fredette. He is going to be a great loss, but the two of them are in sync and share all their information, and I think it will be a seamless acquisition, and I fully support him.
Anyone else? Oh, Alderman Lopez.
I guess I have a question for Mayor Donchis, not specific to the current interview, but in terms of our general HR policies, actually, in light of the fact we don't have an HR director, do you have any kind of internal structure for mentoring or training? Because I hate to over-concentrate all the talent pool and the, familiarity with local systems and traditions, and then have, not any kind of resilience.
Well, yes, that's why we're often, not always, able to promote someone from within.
So there's cross-training and, people generally know, because I know when we have this abrupt, departure of our city clerk right before major elections, it was really handy to have a former aldermanic assistant who was able to fill that role so effectively.
Correct.
Okay. I appreciate
Definitely.
that.
Anyone else? Alderman Lou. Thank you.
And I really enjoyed my term working with you, CFO Griffin. You've been really helpful to me, and I've appreciated that. this seems, I'm concerned, this seems a little bit like putting a Band-Aid on something. I think that Treasurer Fredette announced his retirement in late July. And I think, I've heard that other people did apply for the position. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. I feel that there's a reason that, I understand that it's allowed for the CFO to be either the comptroller or the treasurer tax collector. I think at this point, it would be advantageous to have our senior financial person training, not learning the ropes of a new position while training someone for his position. And I would feel better having, opting for fresh blood or fresh hire. Because I do think in the financial part of an organization, that does something for, I can't think of the word. I just think it's a good practice. Now, that's how I feel about it. But how will the work get absorbed into the existing staff if we don't have a comptroller, but you are going to begin a new role?
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, so what's interesting about New Hampshire is, and I think Treasurer Fredette has mentioned it, there's very few cities or towns that have a treasurer tax collector. A lot of towns have city clerk tax collector. Matter of fact, Ms. Barry, who we recruited successfully, she comes with a city clerk certification as well as a tax collector. So I'm very confident working with Ms. Barry since she's been here 9 months, that she knows how to collect taxes according to the laws of New Hampshire. I looked over to my home state of Massachusetts, and there's a Treasurer Tax Collectors Association. It's like 40 openings down there. So the likelihood of recruiting in New Hampshire a treasurer tax collector is somewhat remote. So what I'm focusing on now is we have Ms. Barry, deputy tax collector. David needs to spend a lot of his time on the cash management, banking, bonding, official statements, things of that nature, which I work with him on. So I'm confident I can do that. Now, the reason why the ordinance that was passed most recently in 2008 makes it clear that the director is the CFO appointed by the mayor. But that CFO can have either the role of comptroller or the treasurer tax collector, but not both, because it's a separation of duties. You folks wouldn't want me doing the books and then cashing checks. So I have to be respectful of that new comptroller position. So as the mayor says, we will appoint a comptroller, we have to. Because our auditors are gonna want that, our rating agencies are gonna want that, et cetera. And we haven't done that yet, but we'll do it soon. I'm confident we can do that. As far as, that's why I gave you a little bit about my historical background. I've done all these positions. I've been payroll, cash management, assistant treasurer. So, and I've met, David has been great having me meet the investment, the mayor says, the investment folks that help us manage our investments, along with the trust accountant. I met all the bank folks. Lot to do, but banking is critical. So I need to keep, now as a CFO treasurer tax collector, I have to separate those aspects from the comptroller. Comptroller needs a great deal of respect, requirement, and the job description needs to say that. It can't be, I mean, I'll be involved because I'll be the supervisor, but they're gonna have a fair amount of autonomy of making sure our books and records are accurate to the best extent possible through the audit process. Not sure if I completely answered the question, but I don't see that I'm going from CFO comptroller, now I have to learn everything new. What I recognized is the struggle that my colleagues in Mass are having getting somebody. A lot of us are around the same age, so people are kind of retiring and they've got no bench because budgets are tight. So to get somebody would be difficult, and I just thought, in every other company I work for, I like the challenge of something new, but I'm capable of doing. I feel as though I can do it. In addition to that, what this city has done a great job with on the financial side is they've had that resource, and Mr. Fedett will provide that I can call him, and bring him in, he can work with us until it's time for David to move on and do something else or whatever, but he is a city resident, cares deeply about the city. He's not leaving. I know his bags are packed for someplace warm, but at some point, but I'm comfortable that we'll be able to use Mr. Fredette in a very strategic way. They've done that in the past with the county managers and things like that, under Mayor Streeter's direction and then Mayor Lozo's direction. So I'm not worried that we don't have the horses and the staff to get things done and have the same level of excellence that we've had since I've been here. So appreciate the opportunity to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. May I follow up?
Alderman Loop? Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that, CFO Griffin. It sounds like Ms. Berry, you said is a tax collector, and I just wonder why, is she not qualified as a treasurer? Is that why?
I could just say that when she came here, she really wanted to work for the city as the tax collector. What we're piecing together here is the treasury part of it, treasury tax collector. As I mentioned, most of the talent pool are going to be city clerks and tax collectors. So you're not, even in New Hampshire, you're going to find very few treasurer tax collector. What they tell me in the smaller towns is it's an elected position, treasurer is elected. But she's a very, very capable person, make no mistake, but she's an expert tax collector, expert town treasurer. Town clerk, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. So it sounds as though we're considering hiring from within for the comptroller. And I may be totally off, but it just doesn't seem like an ideal separation of checks and balances to have your CFO, treasurer, tax collector training the comptroller as well. I mean, that really does muddy the waters, I think.
I could,
So that's my thought.
Madam Chair, I can respond. The comptroller,
Certainly.
just a few minutes of time, the comptroller is an expert at generally accepted accounting principles as applied to the Government Accounting Standard Board pronouncements. So when I came here, what attracted me to this position, as I mentioned, was the CFO, but I knew I could actually speak intelligently to the then accounting manager on things that it wasn't a stretch for me to understand, well, this is how you have to portray it in the financial, so the training is going to be literally no training, because the people that I envision getting, they're gonna already know how to do this. They're either internal or external, but they know how to do the books and records of the city. So it was interesting enough. I'm more an expert at the stuff that Treasurer Fredette was working on, but I had the ability to work with Treasurer Fredette and all the analytical work through working with the mayor's budget and other team members of the budget. So, and I gave a lot of thought to this. I mean, this wasn't 2 weeks ago. I mean, Mr. Fredette had told me he might be retiring. The other thing that happened during the pandemic, I had unbelievable access to the parts of the business, such as tax collection motor vehicle registrations, and partnering with Treasurer Fredette and those team members to make sure that it's something that Dave is very prideful of. Still exemplary performance on providing registrations to 90,000 vehicles in the city. And tell you how great that operation is, there was an audit done over a couple of years. As you know, they moved from downstairs, upstairs, back down. There was one decal missing, one boat registration decal missing. They charge us for it, you know, but the point is, think about all of that movement and the safeguarding of those assets, which are decals for registration. So we've got a great team. David's leaving, he deserves to be, you know, to retire, pursue other opportunities, but I'm confident that we will do well. Thank you.
Alderman Lowe?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of my other lives was I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs. I started in the fiscal department. I was the administrative officer to the CFO. Within the fiscal department, within Department of Veterans Affairs, we had payroll, we had accounts receivable, accounts payable. We had something called the agent cashier, which was kind of like a little mini bank. They gave out money to the veterans and so on. All of that fell under the CFO there. He did cross-training. All of the heads of those little departments spoke to him. They were all under him. So I do see how multiple departments can fall within the finance and under the CFO. I do like the fact that they have separated and said, you can do 2 of the 3, but you can't do 3 of the 3. I think that is a good call on it. But one of the first questions that I want for you is, and I think you've already said it, but I'd like it to be said out loud again, is Mr. Fredette works under you. Is that not true?
That's correct.
Currently. So all of his responsibilities and so on, and much like the fiscal officer that I worked for, if any one of his heads of the departments weren't there, he was responsible for filling in under those circumstances. Oftentimes he would elect somebody to fill in for him, but he did. And while he didn't know every aspect, he didn't know necessarily how to do a payroll, he did know most of those positions. And I assume that's quite the same with you. Is that correct?
That's correct. And just furthermore on that point, David has been very amenable to me if I don't understand something to go directly to the folks that report to him. So one of the benefits of things that unfortunately the pandemic's not good, but I was able to really team with his team, trying to solve day-to-day issues relative to some of those aspects that I'll be taking over now.
And if I may continue,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you so much, Madam Chair. One of the other things that I do want to point out is that Mr. Fredette can't go too far because the county still owns him too, as well as an elected official. So we know we have him at least for another year to kind of tap on his shoulder. So he may find someplace warm, but we know where he lives. So he can't escape us too much. But I think that you would be fine. I like the idea that you can train the comptroller because you've done that position. It's always nice to have the person leaving a position to help train that person. And Mr. Fredette isn't too far to help train you to add to your knowledge base and as a resource. So thank you so much for stepping up and willing to do this. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So CFO Griffin, you do have some big shoes to fill, as you know. But with cell phones, it doesn't matter if he's in a hot spot or down in Alaska, you're going to be able to find him. So he's not going to be too far away. I think your knowledge and training fits you well. And I know in the time that I've worked with you, you've always been spot on and been able to help. And as I said, Mayor, having you explain that this has happened before, that we've done this before because it was necessary. And sometimes, yeah, you want to bring somebody else in, but you don't want to bring someone in that's not going to do the job that you're used to seeing being done. So I am 100% behind you, and we'll approve your confirmation when it goes to the full board. And I thank you, Mayor, as usual, for bringing a good candidate in for that position. So with that, we'll move on to the rest of the meeting, and your appointment will come up
Thank you.
shortly. Thank you. Okay. Application to license hawkers, peddlers, vendors.
There is none.
Okay. Appointments by the Board of Aldermen, Mayor.
Before-
I'm sorry. Office of CFO, Treasurer, Tax Collector. John F. Griffin, Kingsborough, Mass., term to expire indefinitely. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion to recommend confirmation of the following appointment for the office of CFO, Treasurer, Tax Collector, John L. Griffin, with an immediate term, indefinite term to expire, by roll call.
Okay. Would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Clement.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Madam Chair, there is 4 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, so the confirmation has been confirmed. Unfinished business,
There is none.
new business resolution,
There are none.
new business ordinances.
There is none.
Okay, we're down to public comment. Is there anyone? Please come to the podium. State your name and address. No, I'm sorry, we're doing people in the chamber first. Thank you. Ms. Ortolano,
Hi, Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street.
thank you.
Just a couple things. I do really appreciate what John Griffin does for us, and Dave Fredette. I mean, losing Dave Fredette is a big loss, because you have somebody who comes in early in the morning, suit on, works his day, comes in Saturdays, and when you look at the customer service in his area, it's pretty outstanding. So we've been very fortunate. And as I said in my first public comment, I think John Griffin does an excellent job with our finances, our line items, and knowing exactly where we stand. But I do have reservations, and I was disappointed in the mayor's talk about this position. Because I think when he summarizes it, that we really can't find anyone. We're much better working, taking somebody from within, because we haven't had any good luck hiring on the outside. I don't really know what he's referring to. I don't know that we've really tried to hire on the outside since he's been mayor. We hired John Griffin 10 years ago, and we had a really good hire. It worked. Now the mayor's been here 6 years. Can't we hire from the outside and have it work? This is not an age discrimination thing, but our workforce is getting older. And, I don't think John Griffin will be with us forever. And the one nice thing about hiring into the position is you might get somebody that can be trained with the knowledge that John Griffin had, so that when he retires, there's somebody there who has that. When you put the same hat, or make him wear the same hats that have been worn by the people approaching retirement age, you lose the opportunity to spread the knowledge. And when the mayor says we promote from within, and it works great, in assessing, we had nobody to promote from within, because we really didn't have staff, assessors, that really wanted to be certified as supervisors. So there was nobody to take over when Angela Marino left. And the clerk's office, we had nobody to promote from within. We took the clerk to the Board of Aldermen and made her the clerk of the city. That's quite different. When we formed an administrative services department, we didn't have a Maureen Lemieux with a master's degree and a finance background.
30 seconds.
We took the chief of staff to the mayor. That's quite different. So, I think there is some benefit in hiring from outside. Your question was never really answered by the mayor, Alderman O'Brien, on how many people and candidates they looked at. Elizabeth Liu had to pull that out, but I think we should spread our training more and look for people to come into the city. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Is there anyone on Zoom, because we don't see anyone?
I'm on Zoom.
Okay, please state your name and address, please.
Fred T-Boom, 24 Cheyenne Drive. I'm here to listen to the next presentation, taxes, but I caught this meeting. I see David Fredette retired. So we get rid of one redundant position. I can think of another 100 redundant positions the city can get rid of and relieve some of their tax burden. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else on Zoom? Ms. Calhoun, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, please give your name and address.
Laura Cahoon at 30 Greenwood Drive. It's Laura Cahoon at 30 Greenwood Drive. First of all, I think both Dave Frechette and John Griffin are probably the most hardest working people at City Hall. However, I don't think that Mr. Griffin will be able to do everything that he wants to do, and some of the stuff that should be being done. We currently have Mr. Frechette gave me a $7.2 million in back taxes that haven't been collected yet. At this point, that's not including the interest on any of this taxes. I don't, poor Mr. Frechette works, like Ms. Littlano said, he works 5 days a week, Saturdays, he's very, very hard. I don't see how we can do this. We hired a right-to-know attorney to fight the city so that she doesn't have to give out information to the residents. Maybe we should have hired an attorney to get some of our money in on this $7.2 million. I just think Mr. Griffin is going to be overworked, and it's only going to hurt the residents that we're not going to be able to use him or get any information from him because he's going to be so overworked. And that's how I feel. I thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, doesn't look like anything. General discussion? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything, but I work in a financial organization myself. I've worked in one for various roles, various companies for the last almost 12 years. And you always want to hire from within because you have your organization's knowledge. You know the history of the organization. You know the things that have been done in the past that are successful, not successful. You know where your goals are, and you typically are part of a team that is working towards a common goal. Where you are in that team obviously depends on your role, but you do work together in a team. And that's the way most financial institutions work, and I would assume that that is the way that, and from everything that we heard this evening, that's the way the Treasurer's office is running, and that's the way CFO Griffin runs his office as well. So I have all of the confidence in the world that level of, that high level of work ethic will continue with CFO Griffin at the helm and as tax collector. And I have no reservations whatsoever about not looking at other candidates from the outside. And the reason that I say that is because when you look at what we have accomplished over the last 10 years with Mr. Griffin at the helm, we have been noted for many years in a row as being one of the best run cities in America. Several times, 2016, 2017, 2018, most recently this year. I mean, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. And that happens with leadership at the top going down. And that leadership has come from CFO Griffin. And so, yeah, I don't need to see anybody from the outside. The results are apparent, they're clear. He thinks he can do that job. I wanted to have it because I have full confidence. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I give the opportunity for Mr. Fredette to come up here and say that he doesn't agree. But I think he does. So, if that isn't a ringing endorsement, I don't know what is.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for remarks by the alderman? Okay, we'll start with Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Griffin for the recommendation of this board for his confirmation, and good luck when you appear before the full board. But that also means in the yin and the yang of things, that Mr. Fredette is now starting to saddle his horse to move off into the sunset. And I'd just like to personally thank him for his professionalism, time with the city, and his friendship. So as you're getting your horse ready to go down the trail, thank you, David, for your time with the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilshire?
Thank you. I too, like I said, have all the confidence in John Griffin. As far as, you know, the work, he knows what the work is. He's been in this role for 11 years. He knows what Mr. Fredette does and what he does, and he wouldn't put himself in a position where he would sell the city short just to take the position. So I agree that Mr. Griffin is the perfect candidate for this job.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Clegg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I kind of want to reiterate what Alderman Clemens had said. Working in finance, we often hear things like corporate knowledge and upward mobility. In finance, you really do need stability. And stability means that you hire from within. You keep that corporate knowledge. You don't start with someone that's brand new. You may start with them in a lower position and groom them to kind of work up. But upward mobility and corporate knowledge is so important in finance of any department. You know, it's maybe if a company wants to go in a different direction, they'll hire new blood and so on. But I think it's a dangerous thing when we're on the right track, when we are considered with such high ratings and so on. So I'm glad to see this within, and I hope we do hire a comptroller within, someone who has a little bit of knowledge. And as I said, it's nice what we used to call in the federal government is a fill behind. In other words, the person's still here and they can do some training. So thank you.
You're welcome. Alderman Dow.
Yes, I do know that Mr. Fredette does work long hours and Saturdays sometimes. But during the budget season, when I was working with Mr. Griffin, I just want to go on the record and say several of those phone calls were in the evening. So he's not the only one that works more hours than a 9-to-5 job.
Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. I also don't want it to be lost either in the discussion because I know that this was mentioned by a member of the public. Ms. Kleiner is extremely qualified in her position and does a wonderful job for this city. Has all the passion in the world that maybe somebody with a master's degree may have that. And I don't know what degree Ms. Kleiner has, but to me it doesn't matter because she comes to work, she does her job every day, and she does it really well. And so I didn't want that to go unsaid either.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Lu.
That's all right, thank you. I just wanted to respond to some of the members' experience working in finance and banking. I too have worked in that realm, and I think the difference that I see here is when I've been in a retail banking or finance institution, there's a lot of sales going on, and it's very important to work as a team. It's important to develop a common brand and common message, and a big part of it is sales. These financial experts that we are hiring, they need to be more independent than what a retail organization needs their employees to be. And I do feel strongly that it would be more advantageous to really find someone that can join and become a long-term solution for this position, this need that we have here. Because we need to, continue, into the future having informed and qualified candidates for these positions. Yeah. I think I lost it a little bit, but I just think it would be, really, really better to find someone new. And if CFO Griffin became the tax collector and treasurer, that would be fine. But my concern is that we still are without an important part of the finance team. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay. So I think that people have to understand that I don't think CF Griffin is taking this position lightly. I'm sure he contemplated because it's been August since Treasurer Fedette has put in for his retirement. So I'm sure there was a lot of conversation. I think the mayor has, taken the time to look at this, and promoting from within is always a good thing, because you want your people, when you hire them, to know that they could be moved up in their position depending on their work schedule. And this isn't something that is going to be forever and a day, because the last time we did it was not a long period of time, because they hired Treasurer Fedette, and then CFO Griffin came in. So, this is, you can consider it a stopgap, but you're not putting in someone who does not know what's going on. He has great knowledge. He works side by side with Treasurer Fedette. So, and I think the other thing everyone should be thinking about is the workforce out there is, pretty crazy. People are looking for help in all aspects of positions. So I think this is a great thing that the mayor has done, and I think John will do a good job. And certainly if he has questions or concerns, he knows who to talk to and the people to talk to. And I think that the city will be okay in his hands. And whoever he hires as a comptroller, which is not under our purview, but he's going to bring someone in that understands what city government and finances are about. So I have a lot of confidence in CFO Griffin, and I know the majority of the board does too. So with that, I will entertain a motion from Alderman Lopez. Alderman Lopez.
I would like to move to adjourn.
Okay, Alderman Lopez is in a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So we are adjourned at 8:07